Hi. There's no sound. Hello?
Hello.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, and you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Hi, Cheeky Natives.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, hi, Cheeky Natives. It's another week of the lockdown takeover. So welcome to another episode. Obviously, it's me, Letlogonolo, and today we have Sue Nyathi. Hey, Sue, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, and you?
I'm doing well. So I'm going to read about Sue, and then we're going to have a little bit of a discussion before I leave. And allow people who want to engage with Sue to engage with Sue. So I'm going to read Sue's bio. Sue Nyathi was born and raised in Bulawayo and resides in Johannesburg. An investment analyst by day and a storyteller to her son at night, she writes to escape her reality of financial markets and economic shop talk. She made her screenwriting debut on an award-winning ETV series, Matatiele. Her first novel, The Polygamist, was published in 2012, and readers can look forward to its film adaptation in 2019. And then the book that we'll primarily be talking about is Sue's sophomore novel called The Gold Diggers, which was published by Pan Macmillan.
Great.
And I mean, I think it's been really interesting to speak to Sue on two fronts, right? On the one front, thinking of Sue as a financial analyst and thinking about talking a little bit about like what are some of the financial implications of like a lockdown for a emerging market such as South Africa.
Look, I mean, and everybody's talking about this, that the economy is going to take a knock. But economies have taken knocks. This is not the first time. Economies have suffered. And I think we need to have, become more humanitarian and think of human lives first before money. We've had, the recession in 2008. The economy did bounce back. And this is just another cycle that we're going through. And we will get through it. It's just another trough. So I don't think we can sacrifice lives and say, well, the economy is going to, can't take it. The economy can take
it. So I suppose the other interesting thing connected to that is that does writing and the job you do have any correlation, or do you look at them as two distinct things?
No correlation at all. Yeah, zero. Like financial writing and creative writing is so different. And I used to have problems in the beginning because I used to write like analyst reports, and my boss always used to complain that you use such flowery language. Please try and keep it business-like. So I had to literally switch off when I was doing one, and then switch off, and then reboot and do the other. And yeah, so, it's not the best of things.
So essentially the writing process are like when you enter your workspace, you switch off the creative side of Sue. And when you leave that and enter your home, you switch off the financial side.
Yes. So yeah, it's like you have two personalities. And they cannot exist together. And you're always switching.
Before we start speaking about the book and asking you to read the book so we can ask more pointed questions, I wanted to know, Zimbabwe recently turned 40. And so we wanted to know, what does that mean, or what does that look like? Or what feelings are you feeling as someone who was born in Zimbabwe and is living outside of Zimbabwe?
Well, they say life begins at 40. And hopefully life will begin at 40 for Zim. There is no life in the true sense of the word. And so, let's hope there will be some rebirth of some sort in the next coming, decade or two.
And do
Yeah,
you feel
because
any, like, would you have wanted to be in Zimbabwe to sort of celebrate this, or are you like, we can think about it from afar?
no, there's nothing to celebrate, and the thing is, when there is nothing to celebrate, people keep clutching straws and talking about the past. Uh, oh, we've come that far. Yes, we've come that far, but what's happening now? Yes, we achieved that, but we achieved that, 40 years ago. What about, the present? What can we boast about now? And, people often like to talk about a glorious past when there's nothing, promising about your present or your future. So you
Mm-hmm.
always, turn the lens back, which is sad because we should be actually saying, okay, this is what's happening now, and this is what we're looking forward to. And we're not having
Mm-hmm.
that conversation.
So we're going to be talking primarily about gold diggers, but if anyone in the comments has any questions, please pop them up. I'm going to leave in a little bit, and then Sue will interact with everyone, do some readings. It's going to be nice. But I wanted to read just the sort of the blurb of the gold diggers before I ask Sue to read the essay that she has written in the paperback of this book. So it reads as follows. We all know our final destination, but we have no idea of what will cross our paths as we journey there. In 2008, and at the height of Zimbabwe's economic demise, a group of passengers are hurdled in a Toyota Quantum, about to embark on a treacherous expedition to the city of gold. Among them is Guguletu, who's hoping to be reconciled with her mother, Dumisani, an ambitious young man who believes he will strike it rich. Chamura and Chennai, twins running from their troubled past, and Portia and Nkosi, a mother and a son, desperate to be reunited with a husband and father they see once a year. They've paid a high price for the dangerous passage to what they believe is a better life, an escape from the vicious vagaries of their present life. In their minds, the streets of Johannesburg are paved with gold, but they will have to dig deep to get close to any gold, dirtying themselves in the process. Told with brave honesty and bold description, the story of an individual immigrants are simultaneously heartbreaking and heartwarming. And guys, I must tell you, we read this book in 2018 and we were like, Mudimu, we must get Sue on the podcast. So we do have a conversation, a longer conversation of the podcast with Sue. Sue, may I please ask you to read the essay in the paperback?
Okay, do you want me to read all of it? Yeah, I've got it. I mean,
how many pages is it? Please read all of it then.
Let's hope we won't lose anyone then. All right, so here goes. So yeah, this is a postscript that appears in the reprint of the Gold Diggers, and it sort of answers a lot of the questions that readers had. And so it begins. It has been a year since the Gold Diggers was published, but it's actually been 2 years. We're going to be 2 years in June. Yeah, that's when it came out. And the novel was received, with much critical acclaim, which is a huge affirmation for my writing. I reckon writing your second novel is the hardest thing. My debut novel was well received, but I was afraid I wasn't going to live up to the expectations the second time round. So when literary critics say things like, this is a literary masterpiece, or Sue's writing is matured like fine wine, I get warm and fuzzy feelings inside. For the most part, writing is a lonely craft. Besides the company of the characters that live in your head, in a world you have created, you tend to be cut off from the real world for long periods at a time. So once the book is out there and readers are engaging with you, it really is the greatest compliment for me as a writer. I've enjoyed talking about my book on the book club circuit and interacting with readers who are ardent fans of my work. Some readers might not have the opportunity to meet me in person or have their questions answered. So here are the answers to some of the frequently asked questions I've received about the Gold Diggers. The title is misleading. Yes, it is, and it's a bit of a misnomer because when the word Gold Diggers is mentioned, the first thing that often comes to mind for some people is a picture of beautiful young women trying to make money by milking rich men. And I know I'm sure you've seen Simpiwe Dana's trending today because she said South African men are gold diggers. Yeah, but most of the time when you hear that term, it's in relation to women. But I think after reading the book, most readers will agree that, this is far from the truth when it comes to my book. The book is predominantly set in Johannesburg, a city that grew as a result of the discovery of gold in the 19th century. And Igoli is synonymous with gold and finding your fortune. So it made sense to use gold diggers in the title. Centuries later, it might not be gold bars that people are looking for, but it is the economic wealth. Yeah. As such, it seemed appropriate to call the book The Gold Diggers.
You're still here. We're still with you.
As such, it seemed appropriate to call the book The Gold Diggers because most people who come to the city are in search of their fortune, whatever that fortune might be. However, like most people in search of things, some succeed while others fail. So in line with this, I pictured Johannesburg as a woman. I mean, if we think of Cape Town as the mother city, why then can't Johannesburg be the daughter? Hence the image of the woman on the cover. My journey in writing this book started in 2013, but the idea was implanted in my head as a result of the conversations that rose around the xenophobic attacks that broke out in Alexandria in 2008. I would turn on the radio and hear vociferous callers saying, "But why are foreigners here? Why don't they return to their own countries?" And so I felt I had a responsibility as a foreigner myself to answer those questions. Because there was no way I was going to express what I felt in a few minutes on a radio show or in a 280 character tweet. So what better way than to write a book at your leisure without interruptions? Sadly, at the time of writing this, a spate of xenophobic attacks have erupted once again, and the topic continues to dominate headlines and spark conversations once again around xenophobia. It would appear the sentiment remains high, and this is echoed on a global scale with many countries closing their borders in an effort to curb inward migration. So not only is the issue relevant, it has become a topical issue on the lips of many citizens and policymakers. And I'm sure with the lockdown, it's contributing to a lot of that sentiment, people saying, let's just shut our borders completely. I finished writing The Gold Diggers in 2016. And during the process, I fell pregnant. So I fell pregnant, in 2014. So I was mid-process. So the drafting and planning of the book took place long before Sabelo was conceived, but a large part of it was written whilst he was, gestating in my belly. I remember being 7 months pregnant and doing a walking tour of Hillbrow, forms part of the setting for the book. I have walked the streets of Johannesburg inner city over the years and know it intimately. This is reflected in my writing. I once worked for an economic development consulting firm that was contracted by the Department of Economic Development, an arm of the city of Johannesburg, to work on a project that looked at decking the railway lines running through the inner city and building above them. So this is the only time, like I'd say, my work sort of, did lend something to my creative process, because I was able to use that research, it fed into my novel, walking the city, in the city every day. In conducting a baseline assessment of what was in the city, I literally had to map the retail, residential, and commercial uses in the CBD. And yes, it was a tedious process that involved me walking the streets. Okay. This geographical detail was very important to me, so that all readers, especially those not from Johannesburg, could get a picture of this so-called Mecca city in Southern Africa that has lured so many people to it. I enjoyed the research immensely, as it gave gave me historical insight into a city that I was not born into, but I've resided in for the past 10 years. I've always been mad about history, even in high school. So I love learning about the stories behind the landmarks. And while a lot of history was cut out from the final novel because, it disrupted the narrative, I felt enriched by, the knowledge. Post Sabalo's birth in 2015, motherhood kind of overtook my writing efforts. So the book was set aside for a while. And eventually I resumed writing again when I started working full time again. So I had to then switch again to writing at night and working during the day. So why do I write? People ask me the question. So I often introduce myself as a writer by passion and an investment analyst by profession. I write because I simply love it and because it makes me feel alive. But like most writers, I have a day job because the reality is that most writers can't make a living solely from their writing. Unless you're a J.K. Rowling or a Chimamanda, you basically have to try and do a balancing act.
So buy Sue's books. Buy Sue's books. That's what this is saying. Buy Sue's books.
Yeah, so I can survive from it. So like I was saying earlier, so during the day, my head would literally be buried in economic shop talk, building financial models, and you're preoccupied with the volatility of the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So my writing keeps me busy at night. So you're probably wondering how a creative like me got stuck in the world of finance. And it turns out that it was actually a random decision. I always knew from a young age that I wanted to write. So by the time I was 8 years old, I was cutting pictures out of magazines and writing stories around them. Even when I played, I was acting stories. By the time I got to high school, I was writing my books on A5 exercise books with my own cover design and blurred. Just like the way published books are delivered, except mine, of course, were handwritten. And there was only ever one copy, which was circulated amongst my fellow students. And the books migrated from one high school to the next, and everyone got to know about street books. So it was like hiring a DVD because you could only have the book for one night. The demand was so high. So you had to read and keep it moving. And, the students treasured my books. Even though they became worn and tatty, none of them ever got lost. And I still have them. So, I still have the physical books with me. So I probably spent more time reading and writing in high school than I did on homework. And on many occasions, my mother threatened to suspend my library subscription because I prefer to be buried in a novel rather than doing physics or whatever. Yeah, I really used to. I would start my homework and think this is boring. Let me read a book instead. Yeah. So
I suppose one of the major questions that I have, the book's prevailing theme, right, as you said, had to do with two things. One was a financial crisis that was happening in Zimbabwe, but also there was a migration of Zimbabweans coming to South Africa to dig for this gold. But an overwhelming experience of these Zimbabweans and a lot of foreign people in South Africa, particularly from other African countries, has been xenophobia. And we wanted to ask the question of, we're at a global pandemic right now, and we see that there has been a lot of anti-Asian sentiments in a number of countries around the world and even in places like South Africa. But do you think that this time also allows for like some form of more xenophobic attacks to happen? So people wanting to be like, it might be you bringing these illnesses. We don't know what's happening. So the one question is, do you think that xenophobia is heightened in a time like this? But also, why was it important for you to explore xenophobia in the way that you did in The Gold Diggers?
Because the thing is, as much as people can come on legally, there's the legal aspect of migration, but it's controlled. I mean, they look for skilled people. What happens to those unskilled people in a country who want to leave? But there's, they don't have the paperwork and nobody actually needs them, because there's no demand for unskilled labor. But they still need to survive. And so what happens is that they just become illegal migrants and they get into the country, South Africa illegally. And they exist like in a parallel world where there are no laws because you're not legal. And the exploitation. So, I wanted to tell that story because most of the time they're the most affected. If you come in here with your permit, you still have some recourse to the law. But if you don't, you will be exploited. So that's why that story was important for me to tell. Yes, in terms of the pandemic, that will definitely, exacerbate xenophobia. I mean, imagine a situation a few months down the line, and there's, people are sick. Let's assume the worst case, and everybody's rushing to hospitals and pressure. The next thing will be no. Foreigners must stand back. We must prioritize our own nationals, our own citizens. Why we, treat them, and why they're getting preference over our own citizens. The economy, and you know what happens when the economy takes a knock? It will incite xenophobia once again. So, you can't run away from, xenophobia. And I mean, you see it in China recently. What's been happening to a lot of Black people there. They're facing they're being ostracized a lot in hospitals, but they didn't bring the virus. But you see what that happens. So you just become an outlet for the backlash.
So someone in the comment is saying, such valid points, highly relevant now, a lot of them and us and our people first. And I think like you are right. I feel like there's a lot of anti-immigration sort of sentiments and attitudes that are going to creep up if we find ourselves in a situation where there are lots and lots of people who have the virus and need access to healthcare. It's going to be a situation of let's prioritize one, our citizens, but two, let's prioritize legal migrants in this country and let's forget about undocumented people. And so it's going to be like very interesting to see how it plays out. But I'm going to leave for a bit and then people, please feel free to ask Sue any questions and then I'll be back just a little bit later on. But have fun, Sue. If you want to read to us, please read to us and then I'll see you soon.
Okay. Thanks, Lekhono. Do you want me to continue reading from
you
the
can,
post?
and then just keep checking your the screen just to see if anyone has any questions for you.
Okay, cool. Cheers.
See you soon.
Bye. Okay, so I'll continue with the conversation, and please feel free to ask questions. So the next, subject I'm going to talk about is why do I write? So I've always wanted, I've always made time to write, even though I've always had demanding day jobs. So whether it's contributing to a column or writing a book in my spare time, I've tried not to let, my work stifle my creativity. Unfortunately, I'm one of those writers who needs complete silence in order to write. So you won't find me in a corner of a Starbucks with an untouched cup of coffee next to me typing away. I hate noise. And when I'm writing, so I find it very distracting and it just disturbs my thought process. So before I had my son, Sabelo, who I call Sunshine on social media, it was easier to get that, quiet, silent writing time. I would just shut out the world and write. And there were weekends when I wouldn't even leave my house. I'd write from the time I woke up until the time I went to sleep. Okay, so there's a question there. How do you balance your creative writing, your demanding day job, and parenting? Yeah, so basically that's what I was addressing, that it's a juggling act, and it really is because, you have to make time for your child. You have to, so it's like you work, if you're at work from 8 to 5, you come home, you have to be a mom, you have to cook, and you have to, just, be present. And then you need to sleep. And so what would happen invariably is, because I like, silence when I write, I'd end up writing like from like 3 a.m. in the morning till 6 a.m. And then I'd go to work. So you can imagine how difficult, that is. It's such a tenuous schedule. And I don't know, unfortunately or fortunately, I actually got retrenched from my job in May 2018. And so since then, so that's unfortunate. But the fortunate thing is that, since then I've been writing full time. So I no longer have the competing demands on my time. So I can actually write whilst my son is at school. And then when he comes home, I become a mom. I can switch and do the whole parenting thing. And it's just given me a lot more balance. Although it just has made, the fight, made my, trying to survive financially more challenging. But in terms of writing, it's a much better setup. It's more conducive to writing and parenting at the same time. And yes, it does require a lot of discipline. Yeah, you have to like commit to it. So, and because the time thing. So when I was writing The Polygamist, it took me like 6 months because I had the leisure. So when when I became a mother, it was much tougher, and I had to make that quiet time for it. Okay, so there's a question there. Is there a character in Gold Diggers you felt deserved a standalone novel? I think all of them could equally have been. I think they're all distinct stories. So if you think of the Gold Diggers, you have all these characters. You've got Chamnora, the twins, and Chinai. You've got Dumisani. You've got Portia. You've got Guguletu. And, because they're all intertwined stories, but you could easily like tear them apart and actually, focus on each of those characters. Think of Chamnora's character, for instance. It was fictitious, but it was inspired by the death of Ernesto Namabwe, Mozambican national who was beaten and stabbed in Satellite and burned to death in the informal settlement of Ramaphosa. And he became known as the Burning Man. And it's those disturbing images of him splayed across the media that inspired that character of Chamnora. So, can you imagine you could actually take that character and blow it up? So I think any of those characters could become their own book. Yes, I know Alma. People, yeah, like I know a lot of people say Portia deserves a standalone book. Portia is such a popular character. And I've heard so many people say, "Oh, I loved Portia's come up." They just and I guess maybe it's because Portia was probably the only, sort of like happy ending. She clawed her way from the bottom and made it to the top. So Portia, her character represents realities of the lives of many wives of migrant laborers. So my grandfather was a migrant laborer, and he also worked in the gold mines. And his home was in a place called Impandeni Mission in Plumtree. So he would come up here and work, and he would work for years and then go back, but he would leave my granny there. So Portia represents that wife who's left behind. But now, with time, we still see that pattern. And what we see is that the women that are left behind are saying, no more, we're coming to join you in Johannesburg. And so I had to tell that story. So that's what Portia represents. There's a question here. Can you talk about your process for writing fiction versus nonfiction? Look, I only write fiction. So I can't say there's a different process for nonfiction because predominantly my books are fiction. Are fiction, though a lot of them are based on nonfiction. But, I do a lot of research into whatever it is I'm doing. And then, I try and fictionalize it because fiction gives you more leeway. I think nonfiction, you sort of have to stick to the facts. Whereas, with fiction, I can play around with the facts to also support the narrative that I'm also trying to push. So I have a bit of flexibility in that regard. So there's another question there. It says, sorry about the retrenchment. Seeing that you are settling into writing full-time, but there may be financial constraints, would you consider going back to corporate? I don't know if I'd go back to corporate. Corporate is tough, in terms of trying to balance the writing and the career, the focus. And I think I had to make a decision subconsciously that what is it going to be? Is it going to be the writing or Sabi? Hold on. Sabi, please. I'm on a call. Go. I know. Can you please give me time? Close the door. Sorry about the interruption. That's you see that's the mother being a mom. So yeah, sorry about that. So yeah, it's the competing demands on your time and also being my mother. So if I can help it, I'll try not to. I'll try and do as much, work that provides me with the flexibility to write and also to be able to, parent. And yes, I have a PC, Alma. I saw that comment. I'm very, I'm not an iPad kind of girl. So yeah, I'd like to sit at a desk and write. Okay, I'm just scrolling through. Lindani carrying a baby corpse with drugs. Is this part of your creativity or more on the research side? Okay, so the drugs thing with the baby actually happened. So a few years ago, I was on an exchange program in Malaysia. And on the flight, it didn't happen on the flight I was in, but we were on the flight, and because there's a death sentence for drug trafficking, they would flight the warnings in flight to say, if you have drugs, get rid of them. If you're found with drugs on you, you face, the death sentence. So when we landed, we had issues at immigration. There was something wrong with our visa, so they kept us back. And then this woman was caught with the corpse, with a dead baby with drugs inside. So you see how that then, came into the story. So that's why I'm saying it's like you marry the fiction, the reality with something that actually happened, and you put it, you fictionalize it. So yeah, so that is something that, that did happen. Okay, I'm scrolling to see any more questions. Is there a character that I enjoyed writing? I enjoyed writing them all, because each character has a very distinct narrative that they need to tell. And so, yeah, I can't say I didn't enjoy it because if I didn't enjoy it, writing it, I probably wouldn't be there. So it's important. Otherwise you kill them off if they're boring characters. No, but that's not true. No, I liked all the characters. They're very integral to my story. And yeah, I wouldn't have a character there if I didn't like it. I can vouch for the characters being so real and relatable in both The Polygamist and The Gold Diggers. That's why I love both books. I think it's very important to tell authentic stories. So for me, it's important that the characters be believable. Otherwise, you the reader won't buy into them. So that's very important to me. I try and, build my characters from scratch. I have like a character Bible. A lot of script, if you're a script writer, you know what a character Bible is. And I try and have their birthdays, what their hobbies, so that they become real people to you and me. And I describe their likes, their dislikes. Yeah. So that's part of the characterization process. Okay, I'm just scrolling down to see more questions. Gold Diggers was really a lot. The character stayed with me long after I had read it. And so I've heard that comment a lot, that the characters stayed with people say they stayed with them. And then Gugu is one of the characters a lot of people say stayed with a lot of people. They say it's like she haunted them even after they finished reading the book. And that was really deliberate because I wanted you to feel like the next time you read about it, a child who's gone missing, you don't just toss it aside. Think that child is actually a real person with a life, with parents. It's not just another statistic. And I just want to evoke that empathy in people. And that's what the Gold Diggers is about. People aren't just like numbers. They have lives. There's a story behind that face, and that's basically what the book I was trying to do. Because it's easy to just think of people as foreigners, or but just try and think that it's a real person, it's a human being. Let's humanize people. Guguletu had me so worried. Thank you so much for saving her. Yeah, it's a painful story, but it's a story that had to be told because child trafficking is very real. And circumstances have forced many parents, because they work here, they can't get leave, like in December when they need to see their kids. They send for them. And sometimes those kids are not accompanied by another adult. They're given to Omalaicha, and anything can happen to those kids. It's a real danger. And so it's a real story. And I'm sure you must have heard about the truckload of kids that were stopped. Is it by this Department of Social Development. It was in November 2017. They were also coming home. They were apprehended whilst in Rustenburg. They were on their way, to Johannesburg and en route to Cape Town to spend Christmas holidays with their parents. So these things are real, and just so I had to, Google to personify that problem that we have. Okay. I'm still traumatized by the Gold Diggers. It is really a traumatic read. I was traumatized writing it, so you can imagine. And in many instances, I would cry. There were some passages I would write and I'd have tears, rolling down my cheeks. I couldn't even see, the screen because, through the tears. So it was painful to write, And when people say to me, "Are you going to write a sequel?" and I say no, because I have to go back to that dark, painful place, and I'm just not there. I don't want to be there. So it was tough to write as well, emotionally. So when you find yourself crying, just know that I cried too. It is that people tell you you'll need therapy afterwards, or read with a box of tissues. Yeah, it is quite. Yeah, it's quite a heavy read. Question here: which character would you say is most like you? Well, okay, there's Dumisani in terms of the financial, the career aspects of him. We similar. I mean, he was investments. So, that's probably a world that I understand, and I probably put him there. Portia and I have the child in common. I mean, I also have a son and she has a son. People think, some people like to think I'm Portia. Yeah, I would love to be Portia and her come up. But I'm not there yet. Yeah. Like, geez, wouldn't I love to be living in a mansion in Houghton and having some, the advocate worry about the finances while I sit by the pool and, write books. Yeah. So, yeah, a lovely character, Portia. Definitely would like to be a Portia. But yeah, we're not there yet. Yeah, apart from that, no. I guess, that's where the similarities end. Um, the issue in Gold Diggers become more and more topical. Does that sadden you? No, it doesn't. I think it's very important that we need books like that, to highlight the harsh realities. Because a lot of people always shocked, like, geez, I didn't know, this was happening. So it's important that, through our writing, we also educate and illuminate social problems, which is what I try and do. And these problems are going to be here to stay. And I think there's a growing, body of work that they're starting to call, migration literature, that just talks about all these issues. It's important that we do. I kept thinking this could literally be a series. So you're right. So there was interest in converting the Gold Diggers into film. And most people who've looked at it have said, yeah, I see a series. And I think it would work. I mean, can you imagine season 1? We follow the story of, all the Zimbabweans jumping, border jumping, coming to South Africa and trying their luck. And season 2 could be the Mozambican story, illegal migrants from Mozambique coming in and their story being told. Season 3 could be the Nigerian story. It has legs to go on beyond one series. So I also see that too. It could be a series, whereas The Polygamist is more of a movie. Zuri Book Club, we will make sure we have a box of tissues with us when you read. You definitely will need them. You will need them. And alcohol afterwards to soothe your heart. I'm just scrolling through the comments. Okay. Dumisani, was he a popular one? I think a lot of people liked Dumisani until he met Nomonde. I think he was the darling of many readers, and then he became very unpopular for the choices that he made. So he was a darling until he fell off the bandwagon. Okay. I'm just looking out for more questions. Okay. Doesn't seem to be any more questions at the moment. Should we talk about Lindani? She's another popular character. And Lindani came from The Polygamist, my debut novel, and people just love Lindani. And so I brought her back for that very reason, that she was popular, and also for the connection as well. For my first readers, sort of cross over with me with this next book. Look, I've just finished the 3rd book, and no, Lindani's not in it. People were like, is she going to be there? But I'm actually now writing the sequel to The Polygamist. I never thought I would, but I think it's the lockdown. The idea just jumped up at me. I mean, The Polygamist came out in 2012. It's almost 8 years now. Yeah, and suddenly I see a story there. And so that's what I'm busy on now. So maybe Lindani will reappear in there, her original home place. Okay. I'm just looking out for more questions so that you don't think I'm ignoring anyone. You love Chamu. Yes, I know. You keep telling me. Yeah, Chamu was a sweetheart. He really was. Okay. Right. What kept you going throughout the writing process? Okay, so with me, when I start something, I like to finish it. Yeah, that's basically it. I don't like to leave things unfinished. And I remember after giving birth, I reread the draft that I had, and I was like, yo, what the hell was I writing? And then I kind of figured it must have been the hormones. So I had to rewrite a lot of stuff, post-pregnancy. So yeah, for me, it's just every story has an end. And I think I was just compelled to finish it. And I think it's like that with every project. I've never left a project halfway. I might rewrite it, but I always try and finish it. And, if I'm not happy, I'll go back to it later. But that's what really keeps me going. It's writing a book is like being pregnant. You want to deliver, at the end of it all. So that really is what keeps me going. Welcome to everyone else who's joined. Can you please get the first page of the Gold Diggers? So the Hlokonolo wants me to read from the first page. It's a popular passage, which really, encompasses what the story is about. It is a journey of, people in search of gold in the city of gold. And so it begins. A gleaming white Toyota Quantum with black tinted windows pulled into a vacant parking space opposite Max's garage. Everyone in Bulawayo knew Max's garage. It wasn't just a fuel and service station. It was more like a busy transit terminal. Max's garage was the gateway out of Bulawayo to places like Esikotini, Gwanda, Beitbridge, and Johannesburg. In the same vein, it was also the entry point for those coming in from the southern parts of the country. It welcomed you into the bosom of the City of Kings, a city whose pulse was faltering as its entire body succumbed to an economic malaise. The inn's fast food franchise located there also ensured the place was always bustling with activity. The people who thronged there were an easy target for the con artists, petty criminals, and vendors milling around. From his car, the driver had advantage of the unfolding action around him. His interest was piqued by a woman sitting on the pavement, a child plugged to her breast, punting overripe bananas to every passerby. How many bananas did she have to sell in a day to break even? Could anyone actually survive on those takings? He shook his head in disdain. Not only was life brutally unfair, it was savagely hard. The thought that in a few minutes he would be driving out of this quagmire gave him a fleeting moment of joy. Fleeting, because he would soon return to it, and invariably nothing would have improved. In fact, the city's condition would probably only worsen. This is why the numbers of mobile cargo he carried had increased in the last couple of months. They all had one thing in common, the desire to find refuge in the arms of their South African neighbor. So that's the introduction to the Gold Diggers. Welcome to those who've just joined us. Where are the directors to snatch up the rights to the storyline where you need them? This lockdown must end. I think it will come. I mean, yeah, film projects take forever. I mean, I think of The Polygamist. That has been work in progress. Hold on, Sabelo. Please. Okay. Sorry about that. He's getting restless now. Yeah, so with what I was saying was with films take forever. Yeah, so yeah, it's exciting at first, but yeah, it takes a lot. So yeah, you just have to wait it out.
Hello, I'm back.
You're back.
Have you had fun?
I have, yeah, despite the little interruptions here and there.
I mean, look, it's a lockdown, guys. So if you see someone walking behind me, you must just know that, like, it's a lockdown. There's no way that these people can go. So someone had asked, is there any way you could potentially talk about some of the themes that will emerge in your third book? Or is it like a secret and we just have to wait for this third book to come?
Now, the third book, okay, I don't even have a title for it now. That's, yeah. But it's coming out around October this year.
Okay.
Yeah. So initially, the title was called The Gold Rush. But then my publisher felt like people would think it's a sequel to The Gold Diggers. And
to The Gold Diggers, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the title would, because why it was called The Gold Rush, it really was born from the idea, best before 30, the rush for women to get married.
Mm-hmm.
There's that best before 30 clause. Like, if you haven't got him by 25, sort of like skating on thin ice. So, yeah. And so, this, you like this thing of this, you have an expiry date to get home.
So I suppose,
yeah, it's about marriage. The main theme is marriage, and it was sort of inspired by Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, cool. Yeah. That's exciting. What are you reading right now?
I'm still reading Kintu.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on book 2 now. I've been stuck on book 2 for, I don't know. I just, haven't had. Yeah, I don't know. It's a lockdown. My brain.
So no, do not kid at all. Can I tell you, Sue?
Mm-hmm.
The first day I started reading was last night. Since the lockdown. Yesterday was the first time I picked up a book and I was like, oh, my brain can work and it can read words, right? So I definitely understand that it's a little bit harder to read during this time.
Oh, that's encouraging because, I'll read a chapter and I can't do any more. And I was actually hoping I'd be able to read a lot during the lockdown. But
yeah, I see a lot of people are so excited about the third book, but also excited about the fact that you're reading Kintu.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you so much, Sue. I think that The Gold Diggers, honestly, for us at the Cheekinators, why we thought it should be part of the takeover lockdown was it allows us to think about migration in this context, like what happens to people who are undocumented, who are in the country right now, and what happens to them? What's going to happen to them if they are to enter the public health system? Are they going to be assisted, or what's going to happen to them? So thank you very much for writing what a lot of people have reiterated are an important book that has stayed with us even almost 2 years after it was written. And we encourage people to obviously get the book. After the lockdown, if you would like some signed copies, you can just DM us at the Cheekinators and we'll organize for you to purchase signed copies because Sue will be gracious to sign them and then we can get them to you. And then tomorrow,
it's also available on Audible. Hey?
Yes.
So,
yes. Oh, are you reading, Sue?
Sorry?
Were you the one reading?
No, it wasn't me. it's my Ndlovu, but yeah, she did a great job. So for the audio, you can listen to the audio as well.
You see, there's an audio book. Umpile is doing our signature move. Buy the book, please. No PDFs. Authors must eat too. Yes, Umpile. Yes, authors must eat too.
All right.
So you can get the reprint with the essay at with the lockdown happens at books retailers, and then we will also organize if Sue has these reprints for for them to also be available. So just stay in touch with us at the Cheeky Natives, and then tomorrow it's going to be exciting. We're going to be dragged. Bokang wrote, as he's famously known on social media, will be joining us, reading from his collection of poetry called Things the Fire Left Behind. And as people know, that book has left me speechless a number of times. So when I'm not talking a lot tomorrow, it's because I'm dragged by that book.
Okay.
But thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sue.
Thank you for having me.
We're very excited for the third book. We know you can just call us up at the Cheeky Natives because we are just excited to read about marriage. And as Alma said, to drag the patriarchy. So we are ready to drag the patriarchy. So thank you, lovely cheeky natives. Thank you for joining us on this edition of the Takeover. We look forward to seeing you tomorrow, 6